intergenerational dialogue. Indeed, it is a privilege and an honor to have all of you here to be a part of this great conversation in Georgetown, Cayman Islands. My name is Leticia Bush. Currently, I am a full-time student at University College of the Cayman Island, pursuing an associate's degree in the Arts of Social Studies, with hopes to develop a career in the legal field. I have a passion for the performing arts. This has made me to become a professional dancer and a proud senior member of Dream Chasers Cayman. I believe the art form has helped me in countless ways, such as the development of confidence, discipline, and positive competitiveness. For this is very important in this conversation. I will be your moderator and help drive this. At this moment, let me take this opportunity to give you a brief history of global peace and why we have assembled here this evening. Global peace was initiated by the African Revolution of Dispute from the Global South. We are glad that finally our country has joined many countries across the world to seek for global solutions for world peace and development through global. At this moment, on behalf of the Global Peace Team and Accord, I wish to welcome our speakers and who have taken their time from their schedule to join us today for a very great exercise and thought-provoking conversation. We are very grateful for their time, and also to our precious viewers and participants. Thank you for your time. We look forward to having a fruitful conversation. I will now like to announce to you our social media handles. You can log onto our pages and like them. This will enable you to be part of the Global Peace Team, receive news, make comments and suggestions, and be a part of the Global Peace conversation. You can find them on Facebook at Global Peace, Twitter at Global Peace HQ, Instagram at globalpeace.hq, YouTube at Global Peace, and of course the website, www.globalpeace.me. For those joining us on Zoom, you can post your name and which country you are from in the chat box. Send your comments and questions via the chat box and Q&A section of the section. For those watching Facebook via the Peace page, you can also send your comments and questions via the comment box. At this juncture, let's also acknowledge our global partners for global peace. They are initiators in the African Center for Constructive Resolution and to the Buttes, United Cities, and Local Government Association. The Global Citizens, the SDG Action Campaign, the Millennium Movement, the All Africa Students Union, Association of African Universities, the European Students Union, the Junior Chamber International Commonwealth Youth Council, the Millennial Movement, Millennium Promise Alliance, World Federation of United Nations Association. Global Peace is a global initiative committed to finding innovative solutions to the challenges that the world is facing by working together to create lasting peace. Global Peace was launched in July 2018 by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and Ms. Gracia Marshall, Chair of Global Peace, at BRICS Plus Summit lunch event hosted for 17 heads of states. Later that year, Global Peace was introduced to the global community during the Nelson Mandela Peace Summit at the UN General Assembly. The vision of Global Peace is to be a catalyst for collaborative efforts to create social compacts between governments, multilateral agencies, the private sector, and civil society, towards generating innovative solutions to ongoing challenges to peace and development. Working with young people across the world and key stakeholders, Global Peace will be an ecosystem for ideas, innovators, influencers, investors, and implementers to find practical global challenges and strengthening the global multi-lateral system. It is now time to introduce at this who the dialogue. She will be sharing more information about the Global Peace Intergenerational Dialogues. Our convener is Melissa McField. Melissa McField was born and raised in the Cayman Islands. Ms. McField always had a love for educating and teaching dance. Graduating with honors, receiving her Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance and Choreography from the Manley's College of the Visual in Kingston, Jamaica in 2010. It was evident that the performing arts was her passion. Whilst in Jamaica, she danced and performed with one of Jamaica's top dance companies, La Cado, a United Caribbean force, where she was assigned rehearsal director for 3 years, to become a classroom teacher at Dance Unlimited. In 2017, Melissa started her own company, Dream Chasers Cayman, where she held her first season of dance June 2018. In December 2018, she held her first Christmas production, a Dream Chasers Christmas. The company continues to grow and now moving into the 4th year of existence, excellent and more opportunities. Thank you, Melissa Matfield, for this great organization and for this very important dialogue.
Ms. Melisha, your mic is not on. Ms. Melisha, turn on your microphone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Letitia, our distinguished moderator. It is very excited to be a part of the largest global conversation. The Intergenerational Dialogues is a pioneer platform where young future leaders dialogue with current leaders on their aspirations for what a better world should look like and offer inputs on how the GDs were officially launched in the city of Accra on the 6th of May, 2019, by the co-chair of the UN SDG advocate and president of Ghana, H.E. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and Mrs. Claire Marshall as the chair of Global Peace and also a UN SDG advocate. Since the official launch in the city of Accra, under 100 dialogues in 100 cities and to complete the first phase of global intergenerational dialogues. The Georgetown Cayman Islands Global Peace Intergenerational Dialogue is the 100 between young leaders and their country leaders towards working together to shape the future and to build a better world. On the 5th of February, 2021, Global Peace held a global intergenerational dialogue and a launch of the Futures Forum by the chair of Global Peace, Madame Gracia Marshall, and the Deputy UN Secretary General H.E. Amina Mohammed. Why take part in this dialogue at this crucial time of the world? Collectively, the global intergenerational dialogue represents the crucial ever exercising gathering. Each dialogue is also an opportunity to encourage local action and build greater trust between groups and sectors. Your views and ideas will be collected through our report shared on the online platforms and presented to world leaders, the UN, and to global peace ecosystem for ideas, innovators, influencers, investors, and implementers to find practical solutions to global challenges, enhancing conflict prevention and strengthening the global multi-talented system. We look forward to sharing insights and discussions from our country to the global conversation towards shaping a better future. Thank you. Letitia, back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Felicia. It is now time to introduce our assistant/business owner, Louise Roden, business management student with a minor in marketing at the University College of the Cayman Islands. Troy Rogers, special education needs coordinator, East End Primary School, Ministry of Education, Cayman Islands. And Kimberly Miller, UNDS fiduciary Okay, speakers, I will start by opening question. I would like to direct this question towards Ms. Kimberly Miller. It's okay. How do you believe we can collectively bridge the gap between the world we hope for and the world that may result if we don't better manage current trends in the world? I repeat, how can we collectively bridge the gap between the world we hope for and the world that may result if we don't better manage current trends in the world?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm having a bit of difficulties, I don't know, with the connection. I believe that we can bridge the gap by working together, coming together and promoting peace. People who share the same vision as us and speaking out towards government, in a sense. I think that we should have either one representative, or it could be more, for each level that come together for maybe a meeting. And this would include country leaders as well, to share our efforts and ideas as to what we think we could do to move forward in promoting peace and equality.
Well said, Ms. Miller. Eliane, would you like to comment on her answer?
I would just like to add, I think communication is key. So I think being open and transparent with matters that concern us personally, and then as a global, or as a work, as collectively, is important. So just being open and transparent with issues and coming together individually and collectively, as I said, to speak on those matters instead of keeping them to ourselves or complaining about the matters. I think it's important to bring it to the forefront, and like she said, with those solutions she provided. So communication for me is definitely number one.
Okay, you make a great point. Michael, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Sir Roden? No? Okay. Allow me to move on to our next question. Solidarity and we respond to and recover from the pandemic, along with how we will be able to inequalities, violence, of course, collective ever. Global Peace wants to continue the global dialogue across the world on the role of global cooperation in building a better world together. Your voice and your actions need to be shared, and you need to reimagine a new global order at this crucial time. What do you think the international community should prioritize to recover better from the pandemic? I will be asking three of you this question. Let us start with Ms. Gianna. I'll repeat. What do you think the international community pandemic?
Right, so I think that we need to make sure people understand to be socially responsible, as simple as wearing a mask or distancing themselves and making sure that we respect each other's space. And we need to work on distributing vaccines everywhere, and hopefully sponsors from bigger corporations can sponsor medical, industries, and as well as encouraging other people to take part in healthcare.
Yes, very important. Mr. Raquel, I will now be asking you the same question. Ms. Raquel, would you like me to repeat the question? Okay, let's get an opinion from Mr. Michael. Mr. Michael, can you give me an answer for the question, what do you think the international community should prioritize to recover better from the pandemic?
So I personally believe that different countries should take better precaution as to how well they control the incoming travelers that are traveling from different countries, due to the fact that it is highly likely that we don't know who will be transmitting this dangerous disease. So different countries should do better, follow better rules and do better precaution as to how well they control this, by having better control in how well they keep track on the quarantine and if they're leaving their facilities and stuff, because they don't really take control in minor situation, whereas some countries are doing that. So it hinder the countries that are doing good in following the precaution as to how well they control the virus, whereas other countries aren't really following that step. So it leaves a strain on the countries that are doing good, whereas the countries that aren't following strict precautions. So I would suggest that countries should instill better guidelines as to how well they control this by having a global message or a global rule or guidelines, strict restrictions to follow, just similar to what we had in the first big pandemic that we had, where all of the countries were locked down. Something similar to that, but not so serious to the point where we can't leave our house and get our basic needs and wants, but something that are manageable enough, that are keeping us safe from transferring this virus, because incoming travelers from outside of the countries are actually one of the main set of people who are transferring this virus. And we, based on comments and feedback that I heard from friends and family from previous countries, that I would not call no country name, but as soon as they travel, they are in quarantine and they're just wearing the mask. Whereas some other countries are following that step by quarantine for 2 months and they aren't allowed to leave their facilities. So if the government, if we as a citizen, or we in the human nation want to make a better choice, we should go do some form of promotion, whether it is globally, for example, like what they had with the Black Lives Matter. something similar to that, whereas we want better restriction as to how well we can reduce this pandemic, because it can't really happen by just one set of group. It actually is a team have to actually work together to say, hey, we want this to end. So the best advice I would suggest that is we should have a global meeting with the bigger heads, for example, the government and the leaders, to how well we can have better rule and regulation instill to reduce this serious virus.
And if I may add to that, as it relates to the international community, I believe the first priority should be immediate support of at-risk workers, protecting and strengthening the resilience of, for example, small, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, etc., including women-led businesses, most definitely, and expanding what we refer to as universal social protection coverage. We would also like to see greater international cooperation. This is urgently needed to support developing countries, especially, including by promoting liquidity and financial assistance, and by relieving or even postponing repayment or repayment of some foreign debts. We need to make the connection between health and healthcare needs and social, economic, and environmental well-being. Or interventions should also be built on and bolstering existing institutions while steering our economies towards inclusive, and we've all heard about the Green New Deal, including green growth for a better and stronger recovery. We also need to strengthen our, what we term, multilateral system to help countries by extending sound policy advice, ensuring policy coherence, and strengthening international parameters for an employment-led or people-centered recovery. So that's my take on what we think the international community should prioritize as we look into recovering stronger or better from this pandemic.
I'd also like to add.
Feel free.
So definitely, I hear what the guys say for sure, but for me personally, one of the things that I think of that is important to prioritize is mental health. I think that mental health has always been an issue, and I think it's been something that hasn't been brought to the forefront in general before the pandemic, but especially now, I think it's a vital thing to tackle because people are really suffering mentally. And I say any form of free programs or free counseling, free therapy, like as much as possible, if that can be given to the wider community, I think that would help us a lot, because as we all know, we feel bottled in and we feel unheard a lot of times during this pandemic. And I think it starts in the mind. Personally, for me, I see it starts in the mind. So if we can tackle the mind, then everything else will follow suit as a domino effect. So just to add that.
That's a great point, because you're right. During the pandemic, we are mostly focused on the physical restrictions that are caused by the virus instead of what it really is doing to our mental health and the mental health of our children. Thank you.
Right, that's true.
For
and,
that. And
if I
thank you
may
also
add,
just jumping in and answering the question. If you have an interest in it, you don't have to wait for me to call you out. Yes.
right. So I was saying that again, significantly, especially for third world countries, if their debt can be postponed or their repayment of debt, foreign debts can be postponed, then local governments will then have resources to effectively contribute to those social nets or those social policies or social programs, similar to the like Feed Our Future in our local economy, Feed Our Future, and for some other local jurisdictions where they have food for the poor and so forth. Then those resources can then be channeled into those programs.
Interesting theory. Okay, thank you. Our next question is, what do you most want to see in the year 2045 when the UN will turn 100? I will repeat. What do you most want to see in the year 2045 when the UN will turn 100?
I'll just add
Let's hear from Miss
something
Gianna that's
extreme.
joined recently.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's fine. If you would like to go ahead, you can.
Just to say a more peaceful world, a world with people who are more loving and kind to one another, a world with people who respect each other and respect each other's differences. A world where my 5-year-old, my daughter who is now 5, could grow up and feel accepted by not just by the color of her skin, but also by the mere fact that she's a woman and she feel empowered and believe that she can contribute whatever it takes to her society and to the world at large.
I completely agree, Troy, if I may add on. Hopefully the UN will have a greater representation of all the nations, and hopefully we can continue to maintain communication, and we can have more acceptance and greater respect for all of our differences.
I'd like to add to what Gianna says. I agree with Troy, and I also agree with Gianna. I would like to see equality, more opportunities for all. If we are speaking on the efforts of the UN, I'd like to see or hope that in the year 2045, that we would at least be able to see some eradication of poverty and world hunger in third world countries at that time.
Yes. Thank you for that. My next is, 2045 after the, can I with Mr. Roden, please?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yes, I can. Sorry. Do you think people in 2045 will be better off than, worse off than, or about the same as today?
Well, based on my opinion, I don't think we can really predict the future. However, it is, I have let's start with my viewpoint and my opinion. I have an open mind to accept anything that comes my way. So I am like, hey, whatever happens, happens. We just have to prepare for the worst, not always prepare for the best. So I believe that if we all have that mindset to always prepare for the worst, then we will prepare in advance of whatever happens. Because in 2020, we didn't expect a coronavirus to affect the global nation just like that. However, if we did prepare for it, then we would have taken a different approach. But I don't think it would be any better or it would be worse. I just think we should have an open mind to accept whatever happens or prepare for the worst, because I don't think it will get any better than this.
So your point is that while we don't know whether it'll be better off or worse, than that, you think that we should be taking this moment to prepare for what may come? That way that when we are hit, that we'll be better, we'll be able to manage it better. Is that your point that I'm getting?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Kimberly, would you like to add on to that?
Sure, why not? I agree with Michael. Some would say in a sense that it sounds negative, but at the same time, it's a positive, because if you keep an open, prepared for the worst, if nothing happens, then good, that's great, and you're still prepared at the same time. So I think that going forward, if things don't change, I'd say that we'd either be the same, maybe worse. I would not like to think that, but it all starts with change. And like Michael says, we can't predict the future. We don't know what may happen, but at the same time, I think we still need to remain positive.
I agree with the two of them to a certain extent, but it like Michael said, there's no way we can predict the future. There's no telling of what's to come. But I think it's so hard to find an answer to this question, especially because there's so many different sides of the spectrum where you have a certain part of the world is doing their best to make the world a better place, and then you have other people who disregard that. So I think it's finding that balance between the two. I think if those who are trying their best to make things work continue at that rate, it will be seen, they'll be rewarded, and we'll see it in the world some way, somehow. But then there's that other side that kind of pulls it back and like makes you go a little slower than you want. So I agree with them. It's hard to tell. No one really knows, but yeah, just hope for the best.
Okay, thank you for all of those great answers. I would like to just start this open discussion, and it is, what do you believe are the main obstacles what do you believe are the main obstacles and challenges that will block the vision for working together for a better world?
Sorry, can you repeat it again, please?
Yes. What are the main obstacles and challenges that will block the vision for working together for a better world? The questions are also typed out in the chat box below.
Okay, I'll go first since I'm not hearing anyone saying anything. One of the things for me, I view, like I said earlier, is communication.
Yes, please.
Sorry, you were saying something? Oh. Okay, yeah, so one of the things, so the question was, what are the main obstacles and challenges that will block the vision for working together for a better world? So yeah, like I spoke on earlier, definitely communication. It's about being transparent, and that's in every walk of life. Communication is key. So being open about situations, talking like we are today. So forums like this are very important. Discussions like this is very important. So communication, definitely. If that's not utilized, then we definitely have issues, because if I don't know what you're thinking and you don't know what I'm thinking, we can't come to a solution for the problem. Another obstacle that could block the vision for working together are things such as racial injustice. Like that one jumped to me immediately. Like Troy was saying earlier, the color of our skin should be no reason for us to not get along. That is one of the most, for lack of better words, disgusting trait for a human race to ever possess, because we are no different than each other regardless of the color of our skin. So that's a huge obstacle for sure. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in. I don't know.
Yes, I definitely. Sorry.
Go ahead, Gianna.
I definitely agree with you, Eliane, with the racial injustice, but also prejudice in general, as in everyone needing to accept other cultures and people for who they are, no matter what their skin color or their culture or whatever they practice or whatever they do. I think we just all need to be on the same page of accepting each other as human beings.
Another obstacle would be individuals who don't share the same vision as everyone else, possibly government, the infrastructure. I believe that with our infrastructure in regards to technology, it's not all that great. So in order for us to promote peace, we should be relating with, and on this topic, we're about global peace. How can we relate internationally if our technology infrastructure isn't at that level? For example, right now, we're having technical difficulties in this dialogue, this discussion, because of maybe internet connectivity or issues. We need to fix the technology infrastructure and be able to connect with other people worldwide, globally, without any hitches or any hiccups. So
Also, in addition to the topic, I think the leaders of the different nations should instill better laws and regulations so that we as a people can work together as a team to make a change.
Another thing to add to, I think, religious views are another thing that could block the way we work together. So I think, as Michael said earlier, just
Thank you.
to grab on a point,
For panelists,
was
one
like,
question.
oh, okay, never mind.
No, that's fine. It's fine. It's just
Okay, yeah, just to add to what Michael was saying earlier, just having an open mind. So as it relates to race, religion, social differences, economic differences, just having an open mind to the fact that we're all different on different levels, but being open to one another regardless of those differences. So if we could, yeah, that was, religion was another obstacle that I felt that would keep us kind of, I don't know if anyone wanted.
Permit me to also add to that. I also believe one of the main obstacles would be
great.
excluding young people from the conversations.
Mm.
I strongly believe that young people of today should be given a space to express themselves and are involved in the process of finding solutions to the issues that affect them. Because the issues that affect young people today, if they are not addressed with the inclusion of young people, then the issue will continue into the future. So if we continue to exclude young people from the conversation, then that will continue to be a major obstacle.
Yes.
Thank you, Troy.
Okay.
I actually 100% agree with you. As a young person, I'm 14 years old, and I feel like a lot of our views aren't respected, our values and our opinions, and it would help tremendously if adults became more open-minded and listened to us and what we have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Gianna. Okay. We want young people to steer the conversation. Tolerance and shared economies, environment, sharing of knowledge for human progress. Our first question is, how do we ensure inclusivity if we please, how do we ensure at levels of country and national governance system?
can you clarify inclusivity in terms of?
Right? Yes, Ms. Kimberly. Yes, how do we ensure inclusivity at all levels of country and the national government system? How do we make sure that all people are involved?
Well, I think we just simply start off by having conversations like this with people like me, for example, and like all of you, simply just reaching out to other countries like the Cayman Islands, listening to what the youth have to say. And yeah, that's how I think that we can include many countries.
I would add to that to say, yeah, definitely more discussions like this and ensuring that it's a balanced range of ages that are included. So from very young age to an older age, that every gap is kind of filled so that the different viewpoints of the different ages can be considered. So definitely discussions like this, but at a very wide range of ages, and then implementing that early within like school systems and having that discussion started from a young age so that as children develop and get older, they see the importance of communication. So yeah, conversations like this, but inclusive in terms of age, a lot of different ages included, and races and religion and all of the different factors that make us different as humans.
Okay, thank you, Elian, for answering that question. Moving forward, please note that it is one question for each panelist. You guys will be able to decide whether you would like to answer the question or not. Next question will be, how do we develop and connect people? I'll repeat the question. How do we approach development by connecting people through their humanity for effective involvement? Mr. Michael, would you like to take a try at this question?
I would, but you're up while you were. Can you repeat the question again, please?
Yes. How do we approach development by connecting people through their humanity for effective involvement of all?
Come back to that question.
Pardon? If you weren't able to hear the question, it was just put into the Okay, let's do Ms. Eliane. How do we promote effective entrepreneurship amongst the youth who form the larger segment of the population in the world? I repeat, Ms. Eliane, how do we promote amongst the youth who form the larger segment of the population?
Okay, you were kind of chipping in and out, so I think I have that question here that was sent. Let me just read it over just to make sure I answered this. So how do we promote effective entrepreneurship amongst the youth who form the largest segment of the population in the world? That was the correct question, right?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Yes.
Okay, so definitely starting in the schools from even, I would go as extreme as saying from the preschool ages, just ensuring that children from a young age understand and see the vision from early, that they're able to own their own and be their own boss, and implementing small things like practical tasks and works for them to do, such as I know, like, well, in the States, I know it's a big thing, like lemonade stands and selling lemonade. And that's like one of the ways that they implement that entrepreneurship skill from young. So having them do practical things like that to see the possibility of owning their own, doing their own from a young age. So like I said, as extreme as preschool, and then definitely primary school years is a good time to have that implemented. I know for myself, I definitely didn't see the entrepreneurship life until now. And I wish now that I look back at it, I wish that I saw that I was given that opportunity or seeing the vision from time I was in primary school, that I don't need to work for somebody else the rest of my life. And so I think, yeah, starting from a young age, letting them see the importance of skills, sales skills and communication skills and networking and marketing, and just, showing them small ways of doing that without having to be just textbook based through our whole school life. I know that's improving throughout the world as we modernize, so it's not like it's not happening, but I think definitely here in Cayman, I can speak for Cayman, I wish that that was something that was introduced a lot earlier in my life. So I think it should be implemented in the early stages of school life.
Thank you. I completely agree. I would like to direct the next question to Ms. Gianna. What effective strategy can we introduce to empower women and girls in our country? I'll repeat the question. What effective strategy can we introduce to empower women and girls in our country?
I think that the obvious answer is to educate young ladies and teenagers and young women, but we also need to start educating young men and boys and changing the whole perception of women being less than or less respected, less educated, incapable of anything, and that we need to accept the fact that women should be treated and respected equally, and teach men how to value and respect women as well.
Well said. Thank you.
And if I may add to that, I'd suggest strategy could also be, for example, I would term it find a mentor program, where we have these mentors, especially women, to provide opportunities and to spend time with children or with young girls. This can be one of the most life-affirming and valuable experience for a young girl. Mentors are very important in the context. Women who have someone to look up to, someone who can motivate them and to mentor them, that would bring things further. Also, we'd want to ensure that we discuss the importance of education with our girls. And this, most importantly, has to start within the homes. Parents themselves have the power to empower their daughters by providing them with a wide opportunity for educational success early on in their lives. We want to ensure that girls explore different options, the same options that we allow the boys to explore. And even recently, something came to me at my 5-year-old. We were having a conversation. Then she went off and she got super excited. And I found myself saying to her, "Hey, take it down a notch. You're being too loud." She was expressing herself, and I was saying to her, "You're being too loud." And someone turned to me and said, "What if that was your son in a tree being a pirate and shouting out, expressing himself? Would you turn to your son and say to him that, hey, you're too loud also?" Right? So at times we tend to quiet our girls or tell them the certain things that are acceptable. However, we tell our sons that the same things that we tell our daughters are unacceptable, we tell our sons that they are acceptable, right? So I strongly believe that also we give our girls a gift of confidence. And as a father, I try my endeavor best to ensure. And we have to keep in mind that all kids need to develop their confidence at an early age. And this means for me spending time with my daughter and encouraging her in every possible way, right? It is essentially important not to impose limitations. As I was saying before, if they want to learn to dance, sports, acting, singing, no one should tell them that, oh, this is a girl's sport, this is a girl event, this is a boy's sport, this is a boy event. Allow them to explore every opportunities that may arise.
Well said. Thank you. That actually points out, have a point about my next question. How do we improve intergeneration communication between the older generation to leverage on their experiences and also share liberation strategies for development? I would like for Michael, if he could answer this question for me, please. How do we improve intergeneration communication between the older generation to leverage on their experiences and also share liberation strategies for development?
All right. My understanding from that question, I believe that the older generation should actually diverse into different areas because they grew up in a generation that is different from our generation. So oftentimes they transfer that form of behavior into this generation, whereas our generation are really confused to what is going on, to what happened in the past. So the older generation should at least try to explore, with most of them have been doing, and see what is really happening, and where we should learn. From the older generation, we should learn and adapt to what happened in the past so that we are more open-minded and we have experience and have seen what happened in the past, and both the older generation have seen what is happening now, so that we can pull those ideas together to shape the future or become a better citizen, or whatever the case might be.
Thank you. At this time, I would just like to read out a comment in the chat box. It's from Danae Morrison. They agree with Troy's point that equality in choosing their career path, regardless of sex, example, male or female, is very important. So Troy, great point, where you're being noticed in the chat. My next question is, with the advances in technology, we may have when geopolitical weather is I repeat, with the advances in technology, we may have development in the future, but when you look at the current geopolitical tensions, you wonder whether if we will have peace. What is there to be done? Miss Eliane, are you, or Miss Miller, since she has joined back, Miss Eliane or Miss Miller, are you able to comment on my question or answer my question? I will repeat it. With the advances in technology, we may have development in the future, but when you look at the current geopolitical tensions, you wonder whether if we will have peace. What is there to be done?
When it pertains to technology, it's always, well, everything in life is a personal choice. So it depends on the individual, of course. I feel like this is such a broad question. Let me just have, I don't know if Kimberly has anything to say, but I'm just going to read it over just to see how I can approach it.
Sorry, my internet is giving me problems, so it keeps leaving me out of the conversation. I didn't hear what was said for the last 2 minutes. Sorry.
The question that is in the chat, she directed it to you and then I said I needed time to read it over. So I don't know if you had anything to add.
I didn't hear the question and the chat disappeared because it kind of kicked me out. So
with the advances in technology, we may have development in the future, but when you look at the current geopolitical tensions, you wonder whether if we will have peace. What is there to be done?
Yeah, I don't have a direct answer right now. I don't know if anyone would jump in, but my thing is more general or well, more personal than anything. I think everything in moderation. So okay, technology is good, yes, but everything has pros and cons. So I feel like if we allow that to be the controller of everything we do, there is going to be hiccups for sure. So I just think everything in moderation for the individual and then collectively, like government, institutions or anybody, ensure that they don't make it the go-to for everything, because we are human. We need social interactions. We need to be human, be on earth. So I don't know. I don't have a full-on answer. I don't know if anyone can add, but I just think moderation is the key answer.
Would anyone else like to attempt an answer to this question, or just leave a comment? Or if you're not sure, you can ask me a question. I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability so that we can make sure that everyone's understanding. Okay, our next question is, how do we ensure a need to see young people in decision making, even though young people also have a responsibility to build the skills necessary for leadership? I will repeat. How do we ensure a need to see young people in decision making, even though young people have a responsibility to build the skills? Who haven't I heard from in a while? Mr. Rogers, if you would like to attempt this question for me.
Most definitely. As for me, as an educator, I see it's of paramount importance to start building this in the children's culture from a very early age, especially in the schools, educational institutions. We want to ensure that we have student leaders, we have prefects, we have the monitors, we have the student councils and so forth. And we enforce these clubs, these societies, these bodies into our learning institutions. And we ensure that these children are a part of the decision making. So for example, recently we started the student council body at the primary school level. And oftentimes people would say, but student council is really high school. What do the kids at that age understand, or what can they contribute? But trust me, they have a whole lot to contribute. Every senior management meeting that we have, the president of the student council body is there. The president of the student body is that voice of the students. So if we can instill this leadership culture from as early as the preparatory level, the primary level, the elementary level, transition into the high school, into the colleges and universities, then we will be developing young leaders for the world that we want. Also, we just a minute. Hello? Hello? Are you guys hearing me?
Yes. Your mic is not muted. Okay, Mr. Rogers, we're having some trouble hearing you. So I would just like to go on and to read Raquel's answer that she put into the chat box regarding the question. She says that she believes that it all comes down to trusting their own ability to make logical decisions while learning in the process. In her opinion, leadership comes with experiences and a person's trust in you to lead. The more experience in leadership roles and decision-making brings better leaders, which I believe also coincides with your part, that it is very essential that we start putting children in leadership positions from such a young age. Thank you. Our next question is, before the COVID-19 pandemic war, world leaders were focused on the climate war. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there seemed to be progress made in the climate mitigation. But from all indications, it has been noted that when the pandemic is over, human activities will trigger climate change again. How do we overcome this challenge as a country? I will repeat. Before the COVID-19 pandemic war, world leaders were focused on the climate war. However, during the pandemic, there was progress made in climate mitigation. But from all indications, it is noted that when the pandemic is over, human activities will trigger climate change again. How do we overcome this challenge as a country? Okay. Ms. Miller or Ms. Gregory, if you'd like to attempt the question. It is also written in the chat box.
For the question, I would definitely say this is obviously, like I said before, a very general and broad question. So it's hard to tackle it, in my opinion, collectively, just from the get-go. But I think in small segments, if we continue to make small changes or little progressions, such as the cleanups that we do, I can speak for in Cayman, you know, we have cleanups, just different little small things that add to the bigger picture are important. So sometimes we look at the huge picture and that intimidates us. So I think just adding little small parts to it, ensuring to implement certain things within the school systems that allow them to see the importance of caring for our world. And sometimes I believe it can go as extreme as creating fines, like fining people for doing the wrong thing, because I think sometimes we don't take it serious until we're charged, like until money is involved, then we take it serious. So definitely some of those things, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree with you that those community movements and of course the laws really would keep us taking care of our environment, making our environment. I would just like to read Healthcare. She says, trust the process. She honestly believes that climate change comes from the higher power. We as humans trigger aspects of it, but just as my belief. I think that she is speaking more towards corporations that don't necessarily take into consideration the environment when they're producing most of their products, and they don't necessarily take dispose of the waste carefully or make sure that the emissions aren't too excessive. I believe that's what she's speaking on. Our next question will be, how do we ensure that we have intergenerational dialogues in all sectors of society that will foster inclusivity? I will repeat. How do we ensure that we have intergenerational dialogues in all sectors of society that will foster inclusivity?
I think this goes back to the point that we mentioned before, which is to do more of these discussions or these forums, dialogues. And I think consistency is key. Not that it just needs to happen one time, but it should be consistent and have all areas or have all levels of individuals speaking out, make their voices heard.
I also agree with that, Kimberly. I think that in terms of communication between like the older generations and my generation, it just comes down to reaching out to us and also speaking our language, making sure that we can understand each other clearly and using simple terms and relating to the younger generation and being more open with that.
Well said. Thank you both for those great answers. We are almost completed with the section of questions, actually. We're moving quite fast. Okay, our next question is, as we move forward as a nation and the world, how do we ensure that we build more infrastructure in health, education, agriculture, and food supply after the lessons learned out of the pandemic? I will repeat, as we move forward as a nation and the world, how do we ensure that we build more infrastructure in health, education, agriculture, and food supply after the lessons learned out of the pandemic? Raquel, feel free to drop your answer in the chat box. I would like to hear from Mr. Rogers or Mr. Roden regarding this question. I will repeat if needed. As we move forward as a nation and the world, how do we ensure that we build more infrastructure in health, education, agriculture, and food supply after the lessons learned out of the pandemic? Mr. Rogers, Mr. Roden, and Ms. Raquel, feel free to answer via chat box or by unmuting your mic. Excuse me. Is everyone hearing me all right?
All right, let me answer that question.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
So as a question read, as we move forward, I would suggest that we, as a human nation, we should conduct a research or market research that is going on in these different sectors, such as the health, the education, the agriculture, the food supply, so that we know what is really going on, so that we then, the people of the different nations can reach out to different leaders and give them these results so that they can know what to do going forward. also in relating to doing this research, in doing this research, the people of the nation can do things like questionnaire surveys or observational research, or even word of mouth, and just to see what is really going on, if there anything that is improving or need to go, and then give these statistical results to the leaders so that they can look at it and see, hey, then maybe we should work on that, or maybe we should provide more food supply in that area or more education in that area.
Thank you. Okay, allow me to read Raquel's answer from the chat box. She says that she believes that we definitely need to work together and closer when it comes to the generosity, where nations are plentiful in certain areas, giving and sharing with others who are lacking, which can also build closer relationships with nations. I believe she's speaking about the relationships that we have with the developed countries versus the developing countries, that developed countries should be able to extend generosity in order to help the developing countries. Okay. Our next question is, how do we ensure the need for political strong for development, looking at the state of our political system recently? I repeat, how do we ensure the need for political will and strong leadership for development, looking at the state of our political system recently? As you guys know, the elections are coming in a few months. So our political system is very prominent around the island right now. I would like you to just look at that and try to find out how we can ensure that there is a need for political will and strong leadership for the development.
I think it starts by having the right candidates, as well as encouraging people to vote. There are so many people that still are not registered to vote. And I think that's also because, in a sense, they feel like there hasn't been the right person to, or that would, I would say, encourage them to vote. In a sense, I think that politics also creates a divide. So once we have the right candidate, I think everyone would essentially come together, and I think that would encourage and motivate younger people, especially, to vote.
Okay. All right, guys, my apologies for that. Oh, Letitia is popping back in. So let me continue for her. Or Letitia, are you there? Oh yeah, she's there.
Sorry, my
So
apologies. I got kicked out of the call for a minute.
we will be going on to the final question, Letitia, so you can continue there. The final question.
Yes. And in the section, yes. Is there a way we can promote collaborative and cooperative frameworks across societies? Is there a way we can promote collaborative and cooperative frameworks across societies? I would like to hear from Ms. Miller or Mr. Rogers regarding this question. Okay, let me try. Okay. Okay, allow me to move on to the final questions. Attendees, please feel free to answer in the chat box and input your comments on either the panelists' answers or your own. If you could advise the UN Secretary General, that's the UN Secretary General, to prioritize his focus to manage the issues we've discussed, where would it be? If you could advise the UN Secretary General to prioritize his focus to manage the issues we've discussed, where would it be? Ms. Miller and Ms. Raquel, can you attempt this question for me, please? And attendees, please, again, feel free to share your input in the chat, or if you're on Facebook Live, in the comment section.
I guess one of the major things that was kind of highlighted today was ensuring that the youth have a voice. So I would definitely say, as the cliche saying goes, the youth are the future. So definitely ensuring that the focus is on the youth and that their voice can be heard and that different forms like this can be utilized. So virtual, or as things calm down with the pandemic, more in-person discussions like this would be very useful. So definitely prioritizing youth and their opinions and their views, and yeah, making sure they're heard.
Okay, thank you. Everyone, it is actually required for everyone to answer this question. So who would like to go next?
I think that we should prioritize opportunities in education and opportunities in general.
Thank you, Mr. Roden. Can I have your input, please? And then moving on to Ms. Miller.
So I think the leaders of the different countries should have like a global meeting and discuss these issues and instill laws and regulation on how well they can protect their country so that we within the country can be safe. But if the leaders aren't managing their work good enough, then it will hinder we within the country from doing certain things. So with having a global meeting, in, for example, with the pandemic, there can be better laws and restrictions in place to protect us from spreading the virus.
Thank you. Ms. Raquel just answered in the chat box. She says that I would definitely, oh no, that was Mr. Rogers, sorry. Okay. He says that, okay, she says that I would definitely advise the UN Secretary to prioritize leaders to work and collaborate more on bringing the pandemic to an end. That is her answer. Mr. Rogers' answer, on the other hand, is support countries' agricultural strategies and help drive systems innovation through country, private sector, and other in-country partnerships to enable more effective delivery of products, tools, technologies, and services. The private sector has a major role to play in achieving zero hunger, and it is essential to partner with companies that are committed to working with smallholders through sustainable business models. Eat what we grow, grow what we eat. Cut our import budget on food. Okay, and I believe that is everyone that is answered. This has been a really, really great dialogue. We were able to touch on very important topics such as gender equality, mental health, what to do in the COVID-19 pandemic to make sure that our climate crisis doesn't revert back to the way it was, as well as leadership seen in the younger generation, intergenerational communication, employment opportunities, and of course, inclusivity of all levels of country and the governance system. At this time, I would like to wish and express our gratitude to our partners for making this dialogue a success. They are the African Center for Constructive Resolution to Disputes, United Cities and Local Government Association, the Global Citizens, the SDG Action Campaign, the Millennial Movement, the All African Students Union, Association of African Universities, the European Students Union, the Junior Chamber International, the Commonwealth Youth Council, the Millennium Promise Alliance, and the World Federation of United Associations. With that, I would like to introduce our convener to make her acknowledgements at this time and to introduce Dream Chasers Cayman. Thank you.
Thank you, Letitia. I wish to acknowledge the Chair of Global Peace, Madame Gracia Machel, also the Chair of the African Center for Constructive Resolution of Disputes Accord, and one of the United Nations SDG advocates. To our great founder of Global Peace and the Executive Director of Accord, Dr. Vasu Kodin, thank you so much for this great initiative that has come to help build a better world. We would also like to express our earnest gratitude to Mr. Kobla Asamani, coordinator for the Intergenerational Dialogues, and Ms. Kreshma Rojo, the coordinator of Global Peace, for their extraordinary support for making this dialogue come into fruition. Indeed, we are indebted to them, and Global Peace is proud of you all. To all our dearest and distinguished panelists, we are very grateful for your time and the inputs made during the conversation. It is our fervent hope that these inputs made will help shape global conversations and to change the trend of world development. To our viewers and participants, thank you all for the inputs you made and taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us and to support the action of global peace. Without a doubt, the future is global peace. Global peace will be the hub for ideas, innovators, influencers, investors, and implementers to find practical solutions to global challenges. Global peace, working together for a better world. You can still follow us on social media handles and let us continue our conversations from there. Thank you all for coming. Stay safe and stay blessed. Now we will have Dream Chasers Cayman perform for you. Our apologies for that. We'll start over.
They need to turn on the audio.
Thank you, Dream Chasers Cayman. Ms. Letitia, I'll give it over to you again.
Yes, thank you so much for what was an amazing performance. I would just like to take this time to extend my gratitude to the Global Peace for allowing us this opportunity to have our youth discuss solutions to a lot of the current world issues that are very essential to our development as a country and together as a society and economy. I would also just like to announce the continuation of this conversation on the Global Peace social media profiles. And I would like at this time to give you all of the social media handles. You can find them on Facebook at globalpeace.me, Twitter at globalpeace.hq, Instagram at globalpeacehq, YouTube at Global Peace, and don't forget their hashtags, hashtag Global Peace, hashtag IGDs, and hashtag Shaping Our Future. Thank you to all of our panelists and attendees. I know that there was a lot of technical difficulties, but with perseverance, you were able to have your input in a very important discussion. I hope that you all have a great day. And thank you once again.